Geometry. Mathematicians can identify types of sides in a polygon. Let's recap. Yesterday you learned how to describe polygons using new math vocabulary words. Remember we talked about triangles, quadrilaterals, we spoke about pentagons and hexagons, we spoke about octagons and decagons. We were able to identify polygons based on the number of sides and number of angles they have. Today, you're going to be able to identify the types of lines within a polygon. That means we're going to look at their sides. How do we classify lines? There are three ways that we can classify lines or sides of a shape. Remember, we're going to look at the sides or the lines of the shape, and we have three different ways. The first way is through intersecting lines. Intersecting lines are lines that cross or meet and they intersect. Intersecting lines can also form angles. So if we look at this picture over here, here's a picture of two lines and this is the point at which they intersect. When lines intersect, they can form angles. Remember, angles are these areas that I'm tracing right now. It's that inside component. Here, what it looks like on a shape. The orange and the blue line are going to meet at a vertice to form an angle. But they intersect, meaning that they cross, and that's how we know that they're intersecting lines, because they're crossing. They're going to form some sort of L or an angle. Another type is a perpendicular line. Intersecting lines that cross or meet to form right angles are perpendicular. Remember, with perpendicular lines, usually you see this little box. It has a straight line going down and a straight line going out. This is your L that we've talked about multiple times now. And this is going to form your right angle. In a shape, you'll see it something like this. You'll have a red line. Well, looking at the red line and looking at the blue line, we see that they meet or intersect at this vertice, and they make an L, which forms a right angle. When we form a right angle, those lines are called perpendicular lines. Say it with me, perpendicular lines. The last line that we can have are parallel lines. Lines that never cross and never meet and are always the same distance apart are called parallel. They do not form any angles. So you have this line going on forever and this line going on forever. They're never going to touch. They're never going to meet. They're never going to form an angle. On a shape, you'll see something like this green and blue line. Again, they are never going to meet. They're the same distance apart. They are never going to touch, and they are never going to form an angle. Let's practice using some shapes. So here are our three types. We have intersecting, perpendicular, and parallel. On the triangle you have outlined is two green lines. What type of side or what type of lines do you see in this triangle? Are they intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel? If you said intersecting, you are correct. The lines meet at a vertice to form an angle, and they do not form a right angle, so they are intersecting. Here's another shape. Look at the two green lines. Are they intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel? These have to be parallel because these are never meeting, never touching, and not forming an angle. Parallel lines do not touch. Then you have this quadrilateral. It has four sides. The green sides are the ones we're looking at right now. Let's think. Are they intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel? Well, they meet at a vertice to form an angle. So now we have to determine, is the angle right, or is it less than or greater than a right angle? If you said that the angle is right, you are correct. You know that these lines have to be perpendicular because they're forming a right angle. Let's look at this shape. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides. A six-sided polygon is a hexagon. Now let's think. Are the lines intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel? If you said parallel, you are correct. These lines never touch, never cross, and do not form an angle. They are parallel. What about these lines here? Let's see what kind of shape it is first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Five-sided shapes are pentagons. So this pentagon, what kind of lines do they have here? Are they intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel? Well, these lines meet at a point or a vertice. So we know that they have to be intersecting or perpendicular. Let's look. Is it a right angle? No, when I look at my L on my finger, remember we look at the L to make a nice straight line. It does not show us a perpendicular side. There is no right angle here. So they have to be intersecting lines. These lines right here are intersecting. Oh boy, now we're going to practice some more. Your types of sides are intersecting, perpendicular, and parallel. Well, let's look at our shapes. See what shapes fall into intersecting. Well, I have this side and this side. They touch to make an angle or at a vertice, and they're not making a right angle. So these have to be intersecting. Let's go to B. Oh, look, same thing. These have to be intersecting too. There is no right angle and they meet at a point. What about C? Oh, C has intersecting lines too. They meet at a point and no right angles. What about D? D. Yeah, D sides also meet at a point. They're also intersecting. What about E? E meet at a point and so that they could be intersecting, but look at that point. It doesn't look like it's something that's less than or greater than a right angle. So this is not intersecting. Let's move on to the next one, perpendicular. Well, just like we just discussed, as if we went through all the shapes, the only shape that formed a right angle is letter E. So letter E is the only shape with perpendicular lines here. Last one, parallel. Let's see if we can find any opposite sides that do not meet. Let's look at A. You have this side, and if I go across A, oh look, I have a side that's also parallel. So this side is parallel to this side. That means letter A has both intersecting sides and parallel sides. Intersecting, parallel. Let's look at B. Well, if I trace this side and go across, oh, there's no side across from it that's not going to be parallel. This shape does not work. This is just intersecting. Let's go to C. Let's start at this side. Now we go across. Oh, look, this one has parallel sides too. So letter C and letter A both have intersecting sides and parallel sides. Let's look at D. We know D is intersecting, but is it parallel too? Let's go. This side, go across to this side. Oh, look, if we trace those lines, they were going to touch eventually over here. So this is not intersecting, but let's check the other sides. This side and this side. Wow, these two sides are parallel. So D has both intersecting and parallel sides. Let's look at E. This side and this side. Remember, for it to be parallel, they have to be across from each other and never touch. Well, if we look at E, these sides aren't going to touch. So E is both perpendicular and parallel. That's so cool that shapes can have more than one type of sides or lines on their shape. Are you ready for more? I know geometry has been super tricky, but remember, each day we're going to review it together. Today we're going to review the types of polygons too, so you can get these labels of polygons in your head. So today we have triangle, 3 sides, 3 angles. Quadrilateral, 4 sides, 4 angles. Pentagon, 5 sides, 5 angles. Hexagon, 6 sides, 6 angles. Octagon, 8 sides, 8 angles. And a decagon, 10 sides, 10 angles. Remember, these are how we classify different types of polygons. Awesome job today. Remember our goal. Mathematicians can identify sides of a polygon. They can be intersecting, perpendicular, or parallel. Intersecting means they're going to cross. They're going to meet and form an angle. But this angle is not right. Perpendicular means they cross, they meet, they form an angle, but it has to be a right angle. Has to be a right angle. Parallel means these sides are going to never touch. They're not going to meet. They're never going to form any angle. These sides are opposite from each other. Now that you are done with today's mini lesson, please go back and complete the written work for math today. Remember, copy the shapes into your notebook so we know what shapes and questions you are talking about. Be sure to include your heading too. Happy learning! Love me, Miss Brown, and Miss Kapusky. Have a good day, third graders.